Okay, I see we've still got people arriving and joining the session. Let's see, but I think we will make a start, and that way we'll have plenty of time for any questions that you guys have as we go through. Hopefully everyone can see me and everyone can hear me. So welcome to this session. This is a very short, sharp 10-15 minutes where we're going to be talking about deploying out your CAD software, maintaining that CAD software, and also building in any of your configurations into that CAD software in an effective manner so that you can roll out to the users, whether they're working in the office, at home, whether they have permissions to their machine or not. I can see already that people are starting to add to the chat. There are questions coming in. Feel free to add to those, ask questions, and we'll try and get through them at the end of the session. Also, I put a poll in place, and again, hopefully you have access. I'm just interested to know what the main challenges are that you guys come across when you're doing CAD deployments. So as I say, my name's Chris Atherton. I work for Symmetry here in the UK. My job is Consulting Services Manager for the Manufacturing Division of the UK. And my job really is to work with our customers to manage their projects and to make sure that we are allowing them to work smarter and more effectively. Symmetry itself, you may not have come across us, but most people have in terms of our complementary technology with Autodesk. We are a platinum partner and we're one of the largest in Europe and one of the largest indeed in the world. We've got more than 400 employees across Europe, most of which are consultants working day in and day out with our clients or developing software. So today we're going to be looking at one of the products in our engineering IT management portfolio, and that is a product called CQI. It's one of two products. The first is one called CQ FlexMon, which is about monitoring, managing, and analyzing the usage of your software and making sure that you've got the right number or quantity of licenses and types of licenses for your users. The second is CQI, which this session is going to cover, and that's about installing and managing our CAD applications and the configurations in an effective and automated way to allow the installation and the maintenance of that CAD environment, and also indeed the standardization of that environment. So that's where we're going to look at today, but if you have questions on other software, pop along to the Symmetry booth and obviously we can answer that as we go through. So before we go into the actual software, let's talk about the typical challenges that we might come across. And these will be different depending if you're a small company or indeed you're a large multinational enterprise customer. Many of the challenges are the same, but some of the others are slightly different as you scale up. The challenges that tend to be the same are the size of the deployment packages that you get from Autodesk. Historically, what we've had to do is download the Autodesk software, create a deployment onto our network, and previously that had to be done one application at a time. Recently, Autodesk have created a package installer that you can download, so you can select multiple software titles and it will group those together and give you a single deployment image. But that deployment image is quite large. It sits on your network, and if you need alternate groups of software, you've got to download another set of packages. On top of that, once you've deployed out your software, you've still got to update that software and apply your service packs, and then you've got to roll out any of your departmental or even corporate configuration. For the small companies, that tends to be the biggest challenge, is getting that consistency. For large companies, it's also doing that maybe across different languages and different time zones as well. The order that we install the software packages does make a difference, less so in 22 release than it did in 21. If you look at the mechanical design packages, if you install AutoCAD and Inventor, you historically would have to put those on before you put Vault on, otherwise you wouldn't have the right access into your data management system. Now Autodesk have started to allow you to install in different orders, but still the installation order matters. The other change that we have recently is that user rights are getting more and more restricted by IT teams. And that means that IT are required to roll out and distribute software to individual to individual client computers. Engineering resources, we know, is very tight, especially over the last 2 years of the pandemic. And that's compounded by people working at home as well as in the office. And the logistics of getting hold of people are much harder as people have kind of adapted this flexible working approach. So how do we manage that going forward? Okay, quite often an IT team, if you're in a smaller company, you might have a third-party IT team as well who don't know the software and therefore don't know anything about the applications they're installing. So we need to make sure that it is done in a manageable, automated way that is repeatable and bulletproof, really. Okay, so this is where CQI technology really comes in. CQI technology is something developed by Symmetry over the last 25 years. It is an application designed specifically to deploy out Autodesk and non-Autodesk software. We are not limited to just the Autodesk platform. If we look at the traditional kind of product design approach, you would select your products, you would create your deployment packages on your network. Now we can group those. They would sit on that network and be streamed to local machines. Once they're installed, you would add in your updates, your configurations on each local machine, and that would be the job done. But if we look at the size of that package, for a typical installation, say from the mechanical side, and apologies for the AEC customers here, I do work in the mechanical division, so I always hark back to that. But from a mechanical point of view, you might have 45 gig of data there and over 100,000 files that you're streaming for a home worker through a VPN connection. That has a net effect on everyone in the business. With CQI, what we do is we package those applications together. We extract out all the common elements to reduce the footprint of those applications, and then we RAR up or zip up those that media further to reduce that footprint to as small as it can get. We can then group the applications into different sectors. So you may have mechanical users, electrical users, you may have users over in Singapore that need certain applications, visualization users, architects, construction. It doesn't really matter. We get the right applications in there, and they could be from any of the collections that you have access to. We also include in the updates and any configurations that you have. So that could be template files that you're pushing out. It could be Lisp routines. It could be that you have certain libraries that have to go out. But it could also be that you have certain utilities that need to be installed. So for instance, many of our customers use our automation platform for Vault, and we include that in those groups. Once we've got that defined, we then distribute that out to the users, and that is installed. So you have a common installation on each machine. That installation is installed using elevated rights that we build into the CQI package so that the users can install themselves if that's what you want. And in terms of the actual footprint, we're looking around about applications a third of the size, and we're streaming 24 files to a computer rather than 100,000. The difference is that as RAR files, they're streamed down to the local machine. They're then unpacked automatically. The installation is done locally on the machine rather than via a VPN or via the LAN, and then it cleans up after itself as well. We can then combine that with our Flexmon technology to then monitor the usage of these licenses and adjust things like options files to give different access to the applications. So CQI is really meant to be a one-stop shop for the deployment and the maintenance of these. We're not just talking about the installation. We have options in here that as you update your templates or as you update your applications with service packs, the CQI image can be updated and that can be rolled out to the users. You can either manually trigger an update, or it could be that we're using SCCM or some other technology and doing a Windows style update, so the users are informed that the application is working. This is not a replacement for SCCM. This works alongside tools like SCCM for those that use it. Or if you are a smaller customer that just manually installs things, it's a package installer for you with that small footprint that has been created and managed at multiple customers, and we can be sure of the quality of it. We have customers that have, say, 5 seats of software deploying this out. We have other customers with well over 1,000 seats of the software that work internationally, that have to deploy out and work with various IT tools and applications to get the right products onto their user machines. So whatever the scale business you are, this should be able to help you. The other thing that we've been very aware of is as people move from network licenses to standalone licenses and they trade using the trade-in offers, we've got to be able to do that swap over of license types on the software. And again, this application is allowing us to do that. We have more than 20,000 users that use the CQI software every year to do installations. So it's a well-proven technology. It's been around for about 25 years. And again, it's not just about the applications. You've got to keep in mind it's about managing the departmental and the corporate CAD and any other aspects of the design data that you need to push out to the users. At its very simple level, we have an installer that users can run. And for a small company, this might be how we work with it. We can define groups of software. So you might have your collections, or you might have mechanical users. You might select individual software that you want to install. We can install, update, or uninstall across multiple languages. And when we hit install, it will copy that data locally, extract out, install using admin credentials, and then clear up after itself. In certain cases, we also need to go a little bit further than that. And we have the ability through this to then script additional actions. So one of my customers had an issue with the 2017 release of the software where they actually had to, after the installations, downgrade .NET on their machine to solve an issue that they were having and to meet corporate standards. And again, we were able to script that in. For those of you that use tools like SCCM or want to be a little bit more automated, we can manually trigger, but we can also trigger these groups via command line. So you could schedule something via command line or have shortcuts people can click on, and it just installs that group of applications. We can build it into SCCM. It's optimized to work with SCCM by reducing the size of the packages. And obviously, a lot of people have issues when they're using SCCM that the Autodesk package sizes are just too big for their SCCM cache. It can't go in there. Where that's still the case with CQI, in certain cases, we can have the CQI image on the network and trigger it via SCCM should we want to. And again, we're not just triggering based on installation of the software. It could be that you've got a new subset of data, such as templates, that you need to roll out, and you're actually pushing an update on that to the users. For those of you in maybe larger, more enterprise, more complex environments, we actually offer this also as a service where we will develop and maintain that image going forward throughout the year for you, work with you to test that deployment before we then put that into your production share within SCCM, allow that to distribute out to the various nodes where users can then access that software via their software center. And that can work in conjunction with the Active Directory so that a new user gets put into the right Active Directory group and the software becomes available through the software center, and then that triggers the CQI image to allow the users to download and install that software themselves. We then combine that with our license management tool that might then allow them access to particular bits of software through an options file creation as well. So here's a very simple customer example before we go on to questions that you guys have. We have a nuclear customer here in the UK called NIS who had a very particular challenge where they have 40 users and they're migrating through multiple jumps of Vault. We're going from 2016 to 2021 Vault. And for those of you that know Autodesk Vault, when you do that sort of level of jumps, the CAD users lose access to the data management system until their CAD client is migrated. So it's really important that the CAD clients can be updated as quickly as possible. Across the 40 users, they had 8 different groups of software that they identified, whether it's electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, principal engineers. And these groups were the different packages that they wanted to develop. Using a traditional approach, they were looking at downloading each of the individual applications, rolling those out to the users, installing the updates and configurations. And due to lockdown and due to the load on their VPN, the lack of IT resource, and the sheer quantity of software that they wanted, between 3 and 8 packages each, they were estimating that that logistically would take them 7 to 10 days to complete. So they were going to have users potentially that could not work with data from Vault for 10 days. To add to that, they were also doing a license change, going from network to standalone licenses. And that meant that all the current software was going to expire anyway, so they would have no CAD access until this was done. Local PCs were locked, and therefore IT had to do all of this change remotely. So this is where CQI came in. We created the deployments with them. We rolled those out. It didn't matter whether the users were on the LAN or on the VPN. And it was the same process. They connected in via the VPN. They kicked off the CQI image, selecting the group that they wanted. That copied the RAR files, auto-extracted itself, installed using admin credentials, all in the correct order, and then cleaned up after itself. The result of that was that we got all 40 users complete, all with a standard build, but instead of 10 days, it was done in about 2.5 to 3 hours over a Friday afternoon when the users wouldn't have been working anyway. That meant IT interaction was greatly reduced. They were looking at being several of them working all weekend on this. They didn't have to, it was done in that afternoon. And it meant from the user's point of view, there was no disruption. The other gain though was that if a user couldn't be there or didn't have their machine turned on, it didn't matter. We had that flexibility that it could be triggered at a later date. And so for this customer, it had a great effect that there was absolutely no disruption in their day-to-day work whatsoever. If you are interested in CQI, there are loads of case studies on our website. There's a dodgy video from me that I did in lockdown that's available as well. And we have various webinars that we've conducted that are on our site. So get in touch and we can obviously talk around what the options are and how it could work with you. For those of you in multi-CAD environments, you may not just have Inventor, you may have Creo, SolidWorks, any other applications like that. Those can all be deployed out at the same time. We're not just limited to Autodesk here. Again, we also have case studies and examples where we've used this at small, medium, and large enterprise customers. So if you have questions or you're not sure if it's suitable for your environment, get in touch and we can help you and advise you accordingly. Okay, and with that, I'm going to just have a look at some of these questions and see if I can answer them for you. So first one is CQI versus SCCM versus Automate. Not 100% sure on your question there, but CQI is the package and it is the solution that does the updating. It works with your SCCM. So your SCCM typically will trigger the CQI package and tell it to do an installation, an uninstallation, or an update. And it will tell it what groups of software to install. We have customers that also validate that against the Active Directory using the images as well. This can be as small, a simple installation. So you fire up the software, select a group and install, or it can be very comprehensive, depending on the requirements of the business. You know, a small architect firm will have a very different subset of requirements to a Ministry of Defence company. What's the price and pricing structure? You don't see it online. Yep, we don't have that there. It very much depends what we're packaging up, the number of users that you need to interact with, and of course, how often it needs to be updated. What I would say is that the customers that use this, the return on investment is quite considerable. What we do is we work with you to help you define those ROI calculations, so that you have that information and have that understanding of what value it should be offering you as part of that. I can't tell you the pricing. I work on the technical side, if you like. So actually, I'm not allowed to touch the money. But yeah, if you get in touch with Symmetry, one of the account managers would be able to advise you on that based on your specific needs. Can this package AutoCAD LT as it's your main CAD application? Yes, we have customers that package AutoCAD LT. Similarly, we have customers that maybe work with Revit that need to have 5 different versions of Revit installed on a machine. Whatever software you require can be included in. So the Autodesk software we've already got packaged up. It's a case of grabbing that and putting it into the package and building the package that you want. If you have some other third-party applications, we might have to give that to the packaging team to actually put into the software. But again, it can be built in and distributed out at the same time. So maybe it's MathCAD as an example, or you're using some of the FEA software like SimSolid, for instance, and you're wanting that rolled out. That can all be done as well. Does it matter the order of updates to versions of Revit? We ran into weird things, and I'm curious as to one of the reasons. I couldn't tell you, I'm afraid. Revit is one of those tools that I myself don't use, being on the mechanical team. But again, if you have come across some strange things in the installations, one of the services Symmetry can do is we do have a support desk. Get in touch with them. They'll help you out. They'll look at the problem that you've got. They'll advise if it is down to the installation order of those updates. They'll also talk to our engineering IT management team that with things like installation order, they do a lot of thorough testing and they can maybe advise on that themselves as well. Can the software work outside SCCM and also for both internal users and external consultants, allowing a company to ensure standards are always up to date? The software does work outside SCCM. Again, we can have it on network share. SCCM could be triggering it from that. It can be manually run. One of our customers, I have a laptop for theirs. I just connect in and I can trigger it off there onto their company laptop should I need to. With external consultants, obviously you've got to think about license management. If they have a connection to see that package, it could run. But again, what I would suggest for that one is get in touch. We'll get you in touch with the engineering IT management team here. They're actually based over in Sweden, and they can advise and kind of work with you on what the best options will be for that. We have other IT solutions as well that maybe with external consultants work more effectively off the web, but certainly with CQI, we're talking about a kind of on-prem solution predominantly. Okay. So they're the questions I can see in the window. I'll just have a look in the chat window next. Does CQI help with the largest downloads? Yeah. So we did a check recently on the full MFG and AEC collections and how long it would take to install, and we ran that through CQI through a remote machine, and you know, this was a kind of a really good situation, but we got all the software from both of those installed in 2.5 hours, which is phenomenal time, really, considering we've got to stream the data, install it, and there is an awful lot of applications in the collections. So a lot more applications than people necessarily know they have access to. Can the software work out? Sorry, that's in the chat again. I think so far that's the majority of the questions that I can see. Any issues with IT security using this software? So that's a really good question. IT security is getting more and more strenuous. Now, we have CQI at a number of companies. We have them across Europe. It is running at some nuclear companies as well as our large multinational companies. Those sort of companies have very strict security rights. And one of the advantages we've had with CQI is that we've been able to adjust the installations to suit those environments. So it could be you have certain folders are locked down and restricted and can't be accessed, and that's actually what Autodesk would typically use. What we're able to do with CQI is that we can actually redirect some of that media to different folders, so it installs from a different location. So when we understand the security restrictions you have, we can work with those security restrictions, allowing you to then work around them to get efficient deployment of the software. And it's those sort of environments, those high security environments or very complex environments, that actually, you're going to see a lot of benefit from tools like CQI. For everyone else, it's about the speed, the consistency, and standardization. For the high security environments or the very complex environments, it's about getting the right customizations out and having a custom solution that will actually work in that environment. Once CQI is purchased, does the firm purchasing it do the work with it, or is it more a consulting situation where we work hand in hand with Symmetry? The approach Symmetry always take is that we, as you can see from the tagline, we challenge people to work smarter. And the only way that we do that really is by being a business partner with you. So we don't just give you the deployment and leave you to it. We like to work with you to make sure you're getting the best value out of the software. If you want to do that more transactional, again, get in touch. We can talk to you about your requirements, and the package can be delivered. And it could be that you're doing a yearly rental on the use of that package. But we do like to engage with customers a bit more effectively to make sure you're getting the best out of it. Otherwise, we never get more efficient if we don't do that. Okay, so far that's it, I think. I'm just trying to get used to this this chat window and software myself. First time I've used it here at AU. Okay, we've got about 2 minutes left. So as I say, one of the things that I would suggest that you do, reach out to Symmetry. If it's been of interest, you can connect with us here at AU using the booth. My details you should all have, and a few of you have managed to connect to over the last 24 hours. If you do want to connect, feel free. I'm available if you want to connect to me on LinkedIn to ask questions. And if I don't know the answer, I can redirect you to one of my colleagues that do. Otherwise, as you can see on the screen share there, just get in touch with Symmetry and we can hopefully help you out. CQI, CQ Flex One, that's one of a whole host of technologies we have. We've got complementary technology to sit on top of AEC and MFG software. So if you do have certain requirements, automation needs, let us know. Quite often we've already got something that will do that for you. My name's Chris Atherton. Any questions, please get in touch. But otherwise, I hope that's been a useful session, and thank you for attending. Thanks a lot.